you ever wondered who keeps America's secrets, or how spies really operate? What if I told you there's an agency that's been doing this for over 75 years? Buckle up, because we're about to uncover the thrilling history of America's most famous intelligence agency, the CIA. Now you might be wondering, why should we care about the CIA's history? Well, buckle up, because this story is filled with intrigue, world-changing events, and some pretty wild tales that'll make you say, wait, that really happened? So let's jump right in and explore how this secretive agency came to be and how it's shaped the world we live in today. All right, let's set the scene. It's 1947, and the world is still reeling from the aftermath of World War II. The Cold War is just beginning to heat up, and the United States government realizes it needs a way to keep tabs on potential threats from abroad. Enter the National Security Act of 1947, which gave birth to our main character, the Central Intelligence Agency. But hold on a sec. The CIA didn't just pop up out of nowhere. It actually had a predecessor called the Office of Strategic Services, or OSS for short. This wartime intelligence agency was created during World War II to gather information about the Axis powers. When the war ended, President Truman decided to disband the OSS, but it didn't take long for everyone to realize that the US still needed a centralized intelligence organization. So on September 18, 1947, the CIA officially came into existence. Its mission? To collect, analyze, and disseminate foreign intelligence to help the president and senior government policymakers make decisions about national security. Basically, they were the eyes and ears of the United States government when it came to what was happening beyond its borders. Now that we've got the origin story out of the way, let's talk about the CIA's early years. Picture this. It's the 1950s, and the world is divided into two major camps, the United States and its allies on one side, and the Soviet Union and its allies on the other. The CIA found itself right in the middle of this global chess game, trying to outmaneuver the KGB. That's the Soviet Union's intelligence agency for those keeping score at home. During this time, the CIA was involved in all sorts of covert operations. They were gathering intelligence, running espionage missions, and even trying to influence foreign governments. One of their most famous or infamous, depending on how you look at it, operations was the overthrow of Iran's democratically elected Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh in 1953. The CIA, along with British intelligence, orchestrated a coup that put the Shah back in power. It's a move that had long-lasting consequences and shaped US-Iran relations for decades to come. But the CIA's activities weren't limited to the Middle East. They were all over the globe, from Latin America to Southeast Asia. In Cuba, they tried and failed spectacularly to overthrow Fidel Castro with the Bay of Pigs invasion in 1961. Talk about an oops moment on a global scale. As we move into the 1960s and 70s, the CIA's role continued to expand. But so did the controversy surrounding its activities. The agency was involved in some pretty heavy stuff, like assassinations, coup attempts, and mind control experiments. Yeah, you heard that right, mind control experiments. Ever heard of Project MK Ultra? It was a top-secret CIA program that involved testing drugs, including LSD, on unwitting American citizens. When this came to light, let's just say people weren't too thrilled about it. The Vietnam War era was particularly tumultuous for the CIA. They were deeply involved in the conflict, running covert operations in Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. But as public opinion turned against the war, the CIA found itself under increased scrutiny. People started asking questions about what exactly this secretive agency was up to, and whether its actions were always in the best interest of the American people. By the mid-1970s, the cat was out of the bag. A series of investigative reports and congressional hearings, including the Church Committee, exposed many of the CIA's controversial activities. This led to some major reforms in the intelligence community. New oversight mechanisms were put in place, and the CIA's activities were reined in to some extent. But don't think for a second that this meant the CIA was out of the game. Far from it. As the world changed, so did the agency's focus. The collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991 meant that the CIA had to shift gears. Instead of focusing primarily on the communist threat, they started paying more attention to things like terrorism, nuclear proliferation, and narcotics trafficking. All right, let's fast forward to more recent times. The terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001 were a game changer for the intelligence community. The CIA found itself on the front lines of the war on terror, working to track down al-Qaeda operatives and prevent future attacks. This period saw a resurgence in the agency's covert operations, including the controversial use of enhanced interrogation techniques on suspected terrorists. But it wasn't all cloak and dagger stuff. The CIA also played a crucial role in major intelligence victories, like tracking down Osama bin Laden in 2011. Remember when President Obama announced that the al-Qaeda leader had been killed? Well, that was the result of years of painstaking intelligence work, much of it done by the CIA. In recent years, the CIA has had to adapt to new challenges. Cyber warfare, disinformation campaigns, and the rise of China as a global power have all become major focuses for the agency. And let's not forget about those fancy spy gadgets we all love to see in movies. While the CIA probably doesn't have invisibility cloaks or exploding pens, they do use some pretty advanced technology to gather intelligence. Satellite imagery, intercepted communications, and good old-fashioned human intelligence, that's spy lingo for information gathered by people, all play a role in the CIA's work. Lastly, now it's worth noting that the CIA's history isn't all sunshine and rainbows. The agency has been involved in its fair share of controversies and has made some pretty big mistakes over the years. But it's also played a crucial role in keeping the United States safe and informed about potential threats from abroad. As we wrap up, it's important to remember that much of what the CIA does remains classified. For every operation or piece of intelligence that becomes public, there are probably dozens more that we'll never know about. And maybe that's for the best. After all, a little mystery keeps things interesting, right? So the next time you watch a spy movie or read a thriller novel, just remember, the real world of intelligence might not be quite as glamorous, but it's every bit as important and fascinating. And who knows, maybe someday we'll learn even more about the secret history of the CIA. Until then, keep your eyes open and your ears to the ground. You never know what kind of intelligence you might uncover.